right, where we going? Where we going? Who's driving today? So we're gonna go ahead and begin this process. Not sure why I'm getting muted notes here. I should be open. Also, I'm just going to take a moment and go ahead and get the lines that are muted here. Again, it's great seeing everyone. Great seeing the tribe and family come in. Again, it was a day 18, something. Yeah, day 18 on this meditation, and it keeps coming. And the knowledge and the wisdom and the depth and the connection is definitely necessary and needed and useful for the times that we're going through, because it's just boosting us so much into the awareness of who we truly are. As I said, this is day 18 of the Secret Energy Worldwide Meditation. This is really worldwide. Yeah, I just got to know real quick, but this is really worldwide. We're from everywhere. We are all shapes, forms, types through the cosmos. We even have beings joining us every single day that are figuring this out one way or another where we are. And generally, it's because they've tapped into themselves inside, and that's brought them into a space where they're finding their tribe. So I heard a sister earlier say she manifested her tribe. So that's a co-creation, and we're in this. We ask everyone to take a moment and actually, if you have your Palo Santo, if you have your sage, to light it up. And this is very important. We can't fail to make sure that we let everybody know this. This is more or less a disclaimer that in co-creations, energy moves all over. And it's like a pot, we start moving it up and moving things around. So that way, in this buffet of existence and life and relationships, you have the opportunity to get all of the pieces that you're missing. Like your body needs, I believe it's a little bit under 150 minerals inside of it. And you can imagine where it gets those minerals from. A lot of times they're like, oh, take this mineral to your mouth. And we already can see minerals and vitamins that get into the body even through light, right? They talk about how, the vitamin D coming from the sun, right? But it's even deeper. It's many of the elements that are unknown need various forms of light in order to develop. And that actually puts us right in front of Monday and what Monday really does, and why the moon has always been also very sinister in others' consciousness. Has been a mystery in others' consciousness. Has been something that has been revered. Even the great shahs and sultans and pharaohs and all of that had to stare up and look at it. So it also becomes a reference point for where all eyes have been locked. There are few devices, items, objects that everyone has touched on an external level. And like if I make, let's say, some kind of trinket or charm, it may only get into the hands of so many as far as them coming into physical contact with it or looking at it, which is very important, because there's a record kept every time someone looks at something. So with the moon, we've all looked at it for as long as it's been there, is as long as folks have been looking at it. And that's why it's also a lens in itself for those who can harness that eye to see into lots of things. For most, that eye is closed because it also leads into things that what I would say is we don't understand. That's when something is too deep. Generally, if something's too deep, you don't understand it. That's how it works. And it appears distorted because you don't really know what you're looking at. That should make perfect sense. And so that's why we have a tendency to see things that are very deep in a very distorted way. All right, so we're looking really good. Thank you, sister, for letting us know that. And so when your lens is foggy, that's what creates distortion, right? We're just going to only speak layman's terms today, because today what we have to do is we have to decrypt. Okay, what does the word decrypt mean? It's important for when we're using terms, we see the action of the term, like we talked about yesterday, the judge, the leader. What are they doing? They're making choice. So decrypting, what are you doing? What is a crypt? For most of us, our memory of a crypt is like, I don't know, maybe Tales from the Crypt, some, catacomb or something we saw on the History Channel. And that crypt, if you may, is, let's say, a chasm. It is in the deep. It describes the deep, a crypt. So when we say decrypt something, we're saying to take it out of the deep, to basically bring it into the light. That's why encryption is internal, right? It's something happening inside that's not seen. Decryption is bringing it out in front of all of us, if you may, into the light. Because once it's seen by the light, that means that everything that's hit with the light, it becomes recorded. So the most interesting, deepest thing, and I got a chance to get another refresh last night by looking at a great documentary, Fantastic Fungi. If you haven't seen it, you have a treasure for yourself. I know some of y'all don't watch TV, so I'm not talking to you. It's like, nah, I can't turn the TV on. Okay, so Fantastic Fungi, done by Moving Art. It's actually on your top torrents. I know it was on L33T. You can go to utorrent.web. I don't think it's illegal to tell everybody that. You can go to utorrent web and download the client there, and then hit, top torrent site, skip Pirate Bay, go to the next one, which will be L33T. Click, type in fungi, Fantastic Fungi, not fungus, fungi, right? And fungi, some say it in different ways, and then hit enter, and then you click on the thing that looks like a magnet, and then it'll shoot it right to uTorrent web, and you go watch it right then. That's how it works, right? Modern technology, right? So the reality is that when you take a deep dive on the mycelium networks in the bio software and hardware available on the planet, we can definitely say we haven't lifted the veil yet. We have not entered the holiest of holies yet. Because when we see this kingdom of this mycelium and this fungus and just the geometry, the purpose, the cycle, all of what it's actually doing, you have this huge eureka moment if you're on the metaphysical level. Because you realize that the fungus are playing the role between the life, let's say, as far as flesh, and the life, as you say, as far as vegetation, that they're sandwiched in between. Sounds like anybody else's story you may know? Because also it says the closest relative to the human is not necessarily the monkey, but the fungus. Right? And then obviously the story goes on and on and on as it starts to click to you that, yes, once again, another kingdom comes in and supports another kingdom. Meaning that having the knowledge and having the wisdom of this, it gives you another level of support that defeats death. And I'm going to explain it today because last night death got beat up again. Like, death is having a hard time with me right now, and it's just like he keeps wanting to fight. So I've been like, come on in here then. Like, you know how when you gain the win already, now you go dance, I'm gonna do a little rope-a-dope on you and whatever. Come on, death, let's bring it in here because I'm about to decrypt you. And that's just how it all works. In the time in which everybody believes that they need something, then they get it. Somebody wants to figure out, well, what do I go before here and after here, and we start sending their collective thought into that when the answer comes. For us, the answer already came, but it keeps on coming because the wiser we get, the simpler and simpler it becomes. It's beautiful, right? It's also necessary. So here it is, the decryption of death, okay? So now through the moon. Now, when we talked about breaking down something, we said that even scientifically, the moon refracts many of the frequencies from the sun and then beams that, if you may, back down onto Earth. And without us just thinking that may be some type of alien's way of communicating with us or some weapon or some tool, it's important to just think about the action. The sun's responsibility in this role is to be broken down to something that basically the children, the seeds, everything growing can actually eat. Because a plant can't survive off of just sun. It needs minerals. More than anything, it needs minerals. It needs mineral in that soil. It needs other pieces of bark. It needs some worms. It needs life broken down to another stage because the sun is too potent. Do you understand that? Like, we have uses for the sun gazing. Like, if you go on a journey, you look at the sun, it's just like, wow, what is that? But when it comes to let's say, beings that are just starting their process, basically just starting means coming from what they call death. Just starting their process again. They need they need broken down light. They need things that have already been broken down. And that's the moon's responsibility, is creating that process. It uses Venus in many ways to do that, which we'll probably say for Friday. But the moon is 100% the being, the energy inside of us that is responsible for bringing death back to life. See, it's interesting because even when we say death, we've already acknowledged its existence because we gave it a name. So if death is, let's say, on this side, the daemon, then what thwarts death? What is your angel that thwarts you to nullify both? There is life and there is death. So once you get familiar with the component that actually transcends life and the death, well, now it's been solved. Next, pillar on the temple. So how do you solve death? You can't just say with life. That's great, but you need to know what life actually is. There's a breakdown here. This is why the moon exists, so that we don't just say words and say we know about things and then we have no breakdown for it. So it hasn't really come into our awareness. We've come into how to articulate it, but it hasn't come in and become a part of our being. That's why we teach this Innerstanding. And I know there has already some issues with the stream from what I'm looking at. But we do have a live recording on this end. I told them I'm going to keep going on with this. I have a live recording on this side. Everybody on Zoom looks good to me, but it may not be going out there to YouTube very clearly. But I told you. So let's keep going with this, because the more and more powerful this gets, the framework that we're holding with what's our framework, we're going to go into a level, and we're going into a level of being able to communicate without all of this. This is already happening now as we continuously co-create and seek each other in this cosmos in order to create a real organic net. That when the meditation is done, there is actually no need to turn back on these recordings. We'll always be there. We already set that groove in time where we all come together and we have a great moment of learning about our ancestors through ourselves. So even if you come in here one morning and there's nothing going on because they didn't shut down on our end, the internet sometimes does go off. I'm in the jungle. So let's say that happens. I have a backup plan, which becomes in. She's going to try to boot this thing up. Let's say that doesn't work. You come in and it's like the meditation's not happening. Do not get played with, oh, they got them. Got who? How are you going to be getting something superfluous? How are you getting something that moves from life into death, back to life again, back into death? Like, there is no fears as this decryption comes into play inside of your consciousness, because you'll be able to remove yourself from the vices of death. Now watch this. So when we say that the moon's responsibility is to break down something, we do have a deeper awareness of this because we can see the sun inside of the mother's belly. And then we can see the womb or the matrix around it, right? And then we see a cable going to it inside of it that it's eating from. You know, it's just all of the things that the mother is eating. She's eating all the fruits, vegetables. She's taking vitamins. She's doing all these different things. And it's even getting broken down into like a liquid so the baby can just, because it cannot digest solid food. And this is biblically what they talk about a babe that needs milk versus a grown man could eat meat. The digestive system spiritually needs to be built so that there could be awareness of greater things. And this moon is responsible for going through that process. Now, I know there'll be some that are moon haters. They're going to want to resist this. But when I break this down to such the basics of how we only should take the symbol itself and then learn about what it does, it makes perfect sense if you break the moon in your body, how you will have no immunity. So this means that even just saying that the moon is here and it's a part of a artificial vehicle and that it's not real and that it's here, it's put here by an alien to destroy us and watch us and spy on us, all that destroys what that being, it hurts that being and what its true purpose is inside of your consciousness, from based on somebody else's story of them externally interpreting their own fear. Because yes, this has everything to do with death. It has everything to do with bringing death back to life. That's why this whole rituals and things around the moon and the Kemetan mysteries, rising these things from the dead and all this stuff has everything to do with the moon and the process that it does in nature, especially through the mycelium network right underneath our feet all the time. How, as I said, when we say netherworld at times, because our lens is fog, we think of this darkness, we think of these evil beings, we think of all this, but we're not seeing there's a whole network down there. Like the Popol Vuh even says that one of the daughters of another being living down there fell in love with the brothers and rescued them. Forget the story, it's just the sheer reference that there is intelligent life down in the netherworld. They're thinking, they got kingdoms, they got communication, telephones, whatever. They have that going on. And again, we always talk about how conceited we are as beings, thinking we're the only ones that are here. And we know that that is a direct part of the program. But when we assume then that something is here, where is it then? Spirituality is the study of spirits. So where do I find them, right? How do I communicate with them? So as you'll witness also from the documentary, it explains how the mycelium network is so intricate underneath our feet. Funguses have already built an entire that basically our internets and our ethernets and even our neurological systems are only replicas of how intrinsic this network is. And just like Kalindi Ili said, which is another brother to really tap into, to just see, get some of the energy. You just got to get the energy from him talking. I don't even, he's got a deep message, but just being able to go into those realms, as he said, this is beyond billions of years. Mold spores, trillions of years old. They've recorded all of this happening consistently, but then they show you this network that looks like your nerves, and then they pan over to Judy. It's like, wait a minute, let's see, is this possibly the communication network that is truly supposed to be going on? The profile of these mushrooms is deep in realizing how to get rid of other bacterias, anything. Because once one of these fungus like the reishi move in, it's just wanting to create the digs like it's where it can thrive in, and it already has everything packed up to be able to do that. So it's going to remove everything that is not symbiotic with what it has going on, and it's billions of years old. So if there is a coronavirus, Rishi moves in and be like, yo, you're like, how you're like 2.5 years old. Move out of here, Rishi. And then if they buck, like, no, we're staying. Okay, lion mane, and then all sorts of words you can't pronounce, because that's the thing about the mushroom kingdom that's beautiful, is that it already has so much research in it. But again, it's not something that when TV is making up 90% of the day or social media, that someone's going to spend the time, because this could take years. And also it takes getting out there. It's not just, let me go and read something. That's a great place to start. But actually going right in your backyard, they say, right in the local forest, and starting to have a relationship with this kingdom can be done, right? But let me get into this a little bit more, because I know some of y'all are saying, well, how does this have to do with the moon? Like, what are we talking about here? Well, here it is. From gold to silver, okay? Now, you notice that some of us, I even get some of them every now and then, they leave and they come back, silver, lines coming through the face, right? They call that gray hair, right? We also know that, occultists say there's a silver line, and that was continuously taken from ancient cultures who explained this line to be silver. But just saying it's a silver line doesn't mean you understand what it's about, what it's for, why it was called that, etc. So when we break down or decrypt, what does it mean to have a silver line? Well, there's first a gold line. Okay, the gold line is just as sure as the beam from the sun. It's like this rod starts off straight and then coils. This is like the power of creation. It starts off a beam like straight. It's like when they shoot a pulsar cannon. It hits straight, and then once it pulls back, it spirals. So you just see this design that goes straight like a beam, and then it starts going like that. And that's the pattern of life. So first that gold gun shoots the electron, boom, and it goes like a beam, but it's going through densities. So it's eventually going to get impacted. And when it impacts, it spirals. Okay? So at first it's gold, and then once it pulls back, it becomes silver and it spirals. This is also the pattern of life and death, and the process and the key to life and death. Because then what happens is, now let's say once that is now broken down, now what we call life starts to come into existence, because life is wavelengths, life is vibration. Now, of course, with all of this water out here, what we're calling water, when that electron, if you may, pierces water, which is the act of bringing life even in the laboratory, that when you shoot an electron gun into water, a single-celled life form comes into life. That was the most important thing ever discovered by these people directly in science, because it proved how life can come into existence from anywhere. It kind of teleports in. And then from that single-celled life form, that all life forms have come from that. That's the building block. So everything else will be built from there in time. So now, when you could just imagine, there's been a lot of time going on. There's been a lot of things that have occurred. So we have, again, an ocean in the depth of the ocean. We have the funguses that are on the surface, but we have what they really were in the ocean, and they're connected to that. This is the underworld. So this is what happens. As from this, let's say, light that you come, then when the light turns off, let's say you close your eyes, the internal light comes on. That's why none of this is really a direct mystery, because it happens every single day, as I said, when you go to sleep. It's also going to synonymously happen when you leave this plane, quote unquote. This light, it goes off, and then another light turns on. And this is the purpose and the meaning of bioluminescence. And to realize also that the skin is also known as it shines, like it actually shines. When you see it on the astral plane, it has its own shine. So you could see that even in this university or this universe, that we're actually going through a process by our teachers to discover and learn more about ourselves. And it's like, look at you, you shine. You do have your own light. So if you feel like you're in the darkness, that's just something that you're programming yourself with. Unprogram that. You're actually pure light, full spectrum light, and you can exist in dark places without what we would say is an external light, also known as phosphorus, because this is where things got really tricky. There is external lights. There's other beings. I'm an external light, if you may. I appear externally to you, and I carry my own light. And so too, many other beings that you know not, that live in the deep, also have lights. And you could see their lights reflecting on the top of the firmament, and you're calling those stars. Now, we have still the most undiscovered plane for the terrestrial walker to be this aquatic kingdom that is sitting right in our vicinity. But when you look at the symbolism of the moon, which you'll actually see as number 2 in the enealogy, you see the color or the element, the pearl, which is basically white and cream. And then you see that the knowledge of the ancients was that the pearls are created, read it yourself, pearls are created when the power of the moon and the power of earth come together and then get hit with a lightning strike. This is what the ancients said. This is the creation still of what I was explaining of the human being. And then when we leave from this per se, that's why now we were talking the other day about how people were talking about how they want to be buried, or how should they, should they be cremated, or is that the best way? Is that the most holy way? Just throw me out there. Like, throw me out somewhere where they can't find it and play with it, and let the mycelium come and handle its business. Like, you got to ask what was the ancient ancestors doing really before all the pyramids and temples and coffins and sarcophagus? If somebody died, we may even bury you like a seed, but we're going to leave you there. We don't need to put a box around you, some jewels around you, none of that stuff, because once you get into the mycelium network, which I believe you already go also, this is how you actually become omniscient after death, is because a part of you goes into, let's say, the light. The light is the gases, the ether, as it's called. And this is just a matter of what we call the atmosphere. As you get further and further up there, the elements that are up there, like xenon, argon, all those elements are, when you look at them on the periodic table, they're ultra purified. They're still elements nonetheless, but ultra purified. And as you keep getting further and further down, you get more and more different types of elements, all the way until you get to sea level. Okay? then sea level, and then below, you're going to get even more different kind of elements and nutrients. That's why if you look into, they say that seawater is the closest thing to plasma or blood. That seawater is carrying all of these elements and minerals. The salt, all these things are the minerals. Salt is the mineral. Okay, so what we're highlighting here then is we're highlighting the process from life and the death is actually traveling down circuits that are all connected. There is really no cutoff unless you've created one somehow. So once you're dispersed, the light part of aspects of you and the consciousness already been imprinted by your existence in this co-creation is sent into that space. The dense part, the water, it starts dripping in, the blood starts dripping into the soil and going down there, and it's taken by custodians, railways, train drivers, subway drivers, taxi cabs, but all on the microbiome level, taking you into other places. And now every place that you go, you'll be aware of your existence. So this is not a place, death, to cut you off from communication. It's actually the moment where finally you disperse. Just like what we'll see in these mushrooms, these mushrooms keep sending out their spores or their spawns, right? And this is what you're also doing too. And you're doing it with your pheromones. You're doing it with elements that you cannot see. So if you can also bring what you're doing here into alignment with that, that's how much more power you have, because then you're on what we call one accord. You're actually allowing your head to connect with your body and for them to work together. As we talk about, you're allowing the daemon and the angel to actually come back together to create something beyond. So how do you know that this is true? There's one key to this. And I searched this morning in my consciousness and I was like, but I need a key. Like, I already know all this is true, but trying to get somebody else to believe this, I need a key. And I was searching for a minute, and I was coming into all sorts of other stuff because my mind was already like, it was deep diving. I was all in the bottom of the ocean, sniffing the dust down there. Like, I was like, come on, man, just wait. Can we get everybody a key? And the key, once it came back up, it was like, look, the key is, silly, the moon, cows, the mooing, and mushrooms. There's your key. The moon and mooing. Okay, so the crescent moon of the ancient Sudanese tradition, the goddesses, the one that know about the spirits and everything, right? That crescent moon, which is also synonymous with Venus tracing this crescent. Venus, when the sun is lined up with Venus, Venus traces this crescent, but it's behind the sun, and it starts moving like a crescent like this. And then also in front of the sun, the moon is there. So this is like they're actually in a funkendating process at that point, and then sending that energy through the vessels for them to start on into Earth. Okay, so as we're seeing, let me just take a quick moment here because this is deep stuff here. Let me just take a moment. The moon mooing and mushrooms. So check it out. So you have the horned goddesses, and this is obvious. Like you don't even have to know anything about occultism to understand the mammary aspects to this creation. We are warm beings. We are mammals. We need milk. Okay? And everything from, and many of the things in our realm, not everything, many things in our realm always terminate into some white, milky fluid. The male has a white milky fluid. The female has a white milky fluid. And boy, do we love those milky fluids. And then when you look in nature and you see all this slime and you see all these milky fluids, you realize that these are the juices of life. Okay? So you can then see how that is a cognate, because if you had, in so many ways, if you had an auroch with you or a bovid with you, which is, let's say, this is not just your standard cow. This is a very intelligent being, like, the huge head, the big giant eyes, and this being the motherly component to what we call now the human. It's the one that was rearing the human, and this is why you see so much of this in the ancient time with the horn gods and all this kind of stuff, and then India, the sacred cow. This is facts. Many know of the connection in the symbolism Taurus. the Pleiades, all of this with just specifically what you're thinking of as the cow. Now, if you have one, not only is it carrying the burdens because it is much more stronger than a human being. So when it comes to plowing and tilling the fields, when it comes to taking all of our goods in our home, because we were nomadic folks, can't sit down with all that, with the mushrooms, boy, you be all off somewhere in the jungle. Nobody's trying to stay around. So let's pack all this stuff up. Who are we going to put it on? We're going to put it on these beings that also are magnets to the same elements that we're eating that's taking us into a higher level. Everything is built in. It's like the same mushrooms that I need to get into the other state of consciousness is being produced by the being that I'm with when I'm in the other state of consciousness. So now I have a silver and a gold thread happening here. I have my ladder back to the top realm right here. And of course, with most of these things, you don't have to even continuously administer it to yourself. It is like a medicine. But once you're healed, you already see. It's only when you start getting foggy again do you actually need to go in and make sure that those connections and those fibers are in point. And this happens if one doesn't want to just take the metaphysical or spiritual aspect of it, is because when you see what the mycelium network is, it's really a framework where the electrical chi, as we call it, chi is moving through everything, because even the worms are getting the chi, and that is allowing them to survive. And that's what you'll see in this documentary. Anything that's touching this mycelium network, by touching it, is surviving, because the energy that is on the network itself, already running through the network, is energizing them. The same way that we get energized because we're stepping on the ground. And that's why going into the grass and stepping on the grass, it's not, if you wanted to really see it, just standing on the grass. You can leave it at that and not have to ask all the questions. But for the logical minds, you also may want to know what's happening from the sole of your feet, which is the soul, from your soul, which is at the bottom of your feet, ironically. This is not your soul. So from the bottom of your feet, where the soul is then touching the network that is down underneath it. Then with the myceliums, they're already electrical. So they're already trying to metaphysically grow into you, because you're also a tree. Every single thing here says that we are a tree, obviously. And I'm going to get into this tree tomorrow, since the guardian is really also about guarding the tree. So it's important to know what that tree is. But when you put your feet on the ground, the mycelium network is now already tying into you. Now, here is also what you see in the documentary. I want to reference something else so others don't think it's just all like just me coming up with it. So then you have to just trust me. It's about seeing what the work that's already been done, at least by other scientists, biologists, people who've actually gone out there and studied this. They show how this network is not only a full network of communication, but they mention something about how the mother tree communicates with the other trees in the jungle. And we've heard this before, but actually I remember the program that showed that specifically was saying that was just done through like a pollination kind of thing, like spores and things were sent from the tree over to another tree. And that gave us the mindset of thinking that this was actually happening above ground. It's not. It's happening below ground. A tree recognizes all of its other trees. A mother tree recognizes all of her other trees through the network that is underground, because the moment that the child plugs in and starts sending the roots through the network, that's when it's already connecting with it. You see what I mean? And this is what's important to learn, because if you want to know if there's existence after this, absolutely. At minimum, you're going in there. At minimum, your consciousness is now going to go into that stream also, since it's already familiar with that stream, and then begin the continuous communication with the ancestors, because the ancestors are also tied into that stream. And that because this is the great world tree, which we'll talk about tomorrow, it means that this world already recognizes every seed that came from it. So there's none here that are not recognized, foreign or alien or any of that weird stuff, because if everything has already been tied in already, if you're even here, if we can see you, you're a part of it. Okay? So again, this is demystifying death, because you now realize this is where communication takes place. This is what real occultism is. It's the mycelium networks, and utilizing those networks that are in. They try, again, this demonic stuff that's come out now is just a heresy to all of what we really are. Now it brings to mind these ideas of the tunnels of Set, which is the darkest, silliest work to make people fear and never want to touch any of the things to do with the depths of who they really are. They just make monsters in the deep. And this is how they always put monsters into our consciousness about going deep within ourselves. You're a monster in there. Stay away from that. This is like a reference system, like a, excuse me, it's like a hacking system. Let me get some water here. I had some water going early. Let me take a moment. And it's just, again, it's super exciting because to be in the face of the defeating of death again, to actually bring joy after this, to realize that we're going to actually connect in with the ancestors anyway. It's not something that you got to go and do 1,000 Holy Marys and 19 million yantras to get to. In fact, it seems to me that some of that stuff may be clouding it up a little bit. We actually just go out there and start to go out there, but go in there. Thank you for your patience. So now you see it. So we got the cows, we got the mushrooms, and we have the mooing, we have the milk, we have the nourishment. But most important, we also have in the symbolism, we have the mother that's actually holding her child. We have the mother giving the child the milk. We have this child now coming back in. We have already been at full spectrum light and is now traversing back again to the underworld and is now going through existence again and again as we're all making a bridge. But here's the thing. You don't get, like, let's say, for instance, if you came into this stage, you don't even know that you were here before. You don't even know that you even existed before. That's the only time that happens. This is what Delbert Blair, one of our master teachers of Rise in Wholeness, was saying. You got to do it at least once. There is a very, very strong assessment shown in this BioWare that it needs to course at least one time, meaning that this whole idea of death, life, all this stuff, not forgetting, all that has to happen at least one time. I'm for sure making this my last time. Once connecting in with the neural networks and the frameworks and the biological networks, the webs, the chains, all of these different things that are all the stuff that's all the kingdoms and how the kingdoms are connecting, this is omniscience. So right now, this is the singular class being held inside of a vacuum, inside of a womb that is hermetically sealed, so that way we can come into a certain awareness of ourselves. Once that gestation process, because if anything that's going to happen that you can guarantee is change. Once the gestation process occurs, which is already occurring right now, that's why, again, these clowns are out there dancing. Now it's Monday again. Now they have a whole new round of craziness that these are going to be the worst weeks ever. I'm like, great, these are going to be great times. Thanks, Distorted One, for, giving me your 180 degrees. So now I know what it's exactly going to be. This is the week. Now we're going in. Well, actually, we don't even use those kind of terms. This is the strength. Okay. Look, it's all rigged, week, minute, minute, make your days about power. So tomorrow we have the full moon. It's starting tonight. It's now. Like, it's always 3 days before and 3 days after. We always know that. That's like the whole range right there. 3 days before, 3 days after. If the energy is already coming in. So we dial into the space today. What the lunar body has to say is for sure it's going to be okay. That we're really going to get ourselves into a massive level of communication. That the glass is not half empty. That there is something to connect to. The network is already alive. If you want to tap into it now, this ain't something you got to wait for. This is not a pie in the sky. This is not, if you're good, then you get it. This is not about that. And you see that within life. So you're welcome to actually go into yourself. And then if you need that fortification, if you feel like you need a little bit of strength, then I recommend that you actually utilize this kingdom, because it's always there in service and it doesn't have a problem carrying that load. And that's also the most important thing. It only feels like work when it's too heavy. When you're doing a lot of stuff, it just feels like, man, how am I going to keep going on with this? But when you're with others and everyone is sharing that load, i.e., that's what a co-creation is supposed to be, when everybody is actually included, then it's not a load to carry at all. So for us to actually get humanity into, let's say, from feeling like it's over to realizing, because it doesn't matter what they feel. That's the other thing, is you got to realize just how powerful the higher laws really are. They don't care if the human being is happy or sad to whether or not the transition process is going to take place. I'm glad of that. I'm glad we're not holding up the transition process. This is something that was mentioned also yesterday after the Keymakers that I thought was very valid. And it was that, well, still most people are getting something to actually generally feel sad about it. They're still into that. Like, you get a new car, and then like, but girl, I just wanted them leather seats, and I should have got them. And then you go to bed that night, you're like, man, I should have got them leather seats. Now I got a car I don't like anymore. It's like, wait a minute, you got a car. And then it's like, okay, whatever. And then I want this person, and I want this person. But now you get with the person. Now I can't stand this person. Like, hey, I can't even, if I didn't knew they were like this. So it's a natural process for us to go through life. Oh, this is my one. This is the one, girl. From life all the way to he's got to go. Come get his stuff. You see what I mean? So this is a natural part of the existence. So it's best to have some kind of salve for that. Solve. What is the solvent? What's breaking things down? This is that power. This is why some have feared it, because they're scared of everything. This is why it has that kind of symbolism tied into it. I said the world of fungus, stank, nastiness, death, decay, disease, all of that. They got it handled. That's where that gets handled. Diseases get handled by the mycelium network. They get put into their place, categorized, classified, and organized. And so anytime anything enters into the realm, again, we love to say it's manufactured, it's engineered. They engineered it. This reminds me of a joke, okay? This joke goes, so this guy comes up to God and says, I figure out how you did it. Now, mind you, this is a joke. I figured out how you did it, how you created the world. God says, really? Show me tomorrow on the beach. So the next day comes, the guy shows up to the beach, God shows up. He says, okay, do it. And the guy said, first, I took dirt. The guy said, hold on, get your own dirt. What does this mean? As a joke. What this means is, how do you create something from the same thing that was already the creator? How do you insist that you've done something new with the elements that are already put into existence? It cannot be new. You may have, quote unquote, discovered it, but it has always been here. And this is the riddle of life. This is how to let yourself out of the cage. Anything that you think cannot be done, it's already been done. Somebody's already done that. Something's already done that, and even beyond. So this is how you are literally able to pave a passageway of what is truly going to be beneficial to you. And while you have a short term here, this is a very short term for a supreme being, 72 years. The same thing that happens when you go to sleep, when you dream, is going to happen when you move on. And at that level, you'll have all of the things that you've tied into at that stage to use as the building blocks for the creation that you're going to be projecting. And this is why it's not a great idea to fill the mind with phantoms. And let me see what's going on here. Oh, wow, we almost had, we went over 300. Whoa. Got a little text over here, like we hit 100 in Zoom. I guess they over there at YouTube, because YouTube seems to be not working out. It's great. Don't worry, I did hit the record button on this today. I think I have to run this back around depending on the quality of what's going on. I think Monica's saying we have buffering. Thank you, sister. So, but this is it. Like you would expect the mysteries of death to be actually, some folks, it's going to get a little bit more from them before it's like, nah, I carried the recording. It was right there. It's not, no, it's not going to be. It's going to get a little bit more juice from him. Because also that itself as an agent is responsible for breaking down. Do you get that? Like there is an element that is responsible for breaking down the whole joy and the whole solar light. And yes, I'm new. There's an element like, no, you old. I'm the greatest. You suck. What is that? That is the BioWare that is here of the bridge of life and death. Now, what they're saying about the human being that becomes so glorious is that they actually have gained the ability to make choices in all of that, though. So why something may be saying, you're done. I never finish. You can go into that. This is why they're also saying that we are designed in this way of communication, that this speech that we're doing is like, you know, when you read the ancient text, it's like Prometheus. The fire of Prometheus is us to be able to use the fiery tongue to talk and to evoke and to say things, because it becomes a reconfirmation, intonation and intonation. It becomes a reconfirmation for us to be able to talk, think and then talk, think and then talk. This is why even in any kind of session where you're building up the vibration, if you're doing that with words, i.e. mantras, it starts to build up. You're thinking and talking and thinking and talking and thinking. And then it starts spinning this wheel, and then you unlock from that. And then it goes into a higher consciousness. I'm going to show you this design tomorrow. We call it the tree. And it's basically a dynamo in itself. It's an energetic system. It's what all the ancient kingdoms, when they show the ancient kingdoms all the way to the top of Mount Meru, they all have this design to them for a reason. But when one wanders only externally to see, is that kingdom really here on earth? And I doubt that it is. I don't doubt that it is. But first, the kingdom is within. So this is also a diagram for exactly how the body functions inside and where the things are inside the body. Because our ancestors spent a proficient amount of time consistently going into this knowledge and finding more ways to break it down. They understood the Ma'at, the mooing, the cow goddess. They understood that the ultimate act of love was nourishment. But nourishment meant breaking down potent things. So our explorers went out to find potent things to break down. This is really what you do when you go in the jungle and you may find this fungus. And one of us that took an L for the team, he ate it and dropped right into the other realm right away. Be like, okay, I guess you shouldn't eat this one like at full potency. Let's take it back. Let's break it down. You even have knowledge of the Persians knowing how to break down poisons and venoms to actually produce medicines. Who's there to try that out? Me. These can't be the people afraid of death. If you think you only got one life and you go gamble that one life on a mushroom, you had to have already known. It had to be embedded within you to realize your connection with infinitude. That's the only way that kind of courage steps in. That's the only way that something like that could be possible. So let us remain encouraged as we go forward here. It's Monday. We're going right into this Snowpiercer, like whatever it is that's been cooked up again. Just staying in our realm, especially now that we're being given this opportunity by self. If you're not going nuts, that's why we said, if you can't be by yourself, you don't need to be by anybody. Anyway, we were saying that over and over again because it is an awareness that, especially when you're taking in stimulus all the time, which of course the Western culture provides stimulus everywhere. And all of a sudden that stimulus is cut off. It's like a dope. You know, it's like now you're not getting your dope. And then now you're like skitzing, you know, you're freaking out. Your emotions are all over the place. You know, this is what happens when you have to detox from a very, very toxic frequency brew, right? Called, you know, news and the world and all of that kind of stuff. But now that you get a chance to administer the mycelium to yourself, you get a chance to ground into mother, realize where you're at. That's why we say every time you're born, you come back into your mother's room and you fool yourself into believing that you're not in your mother's womb. I'm leaving. I'm 18. I'm out. And then you come right into Mother Earth. She's like, This is hilarious. How many times is he going to do this? Well, he's on his 18th time. Well, damn, don't laugh. You did it 36 times. It's like a real process here that we're going through. I'll say this and I'm done. One day, I'm on the mountain. I'm actually at a viewpoint where I can see everything that's down in the valleys. I take a journey. Third eye opens up. I end up going in like higher than I even expect, which is kind of always the thing. I'm always higher than I expect. And then I'm in there and I'm looking out into this whole thing and I'm seeing it because I'm at a good view. Because normally if you go on a journey, you're like, if you're in a chasm, you only can see just the wall in front of you. You go a little higher, you're only seeing that. I was way up there looking down into the world, if you may. And then all of a sudden, I started noticing, because I was up that high, that I wasn't seeing separate things. I was seeing all of one thing. And as I started to realize that was coming into my awareness, fear started coming in. Like, my goodness, I'm looking at one huge being. And I'm kind of like scanning it, like I'm scanning the land, right? Because I'm so far out there, because you see in the third eye, it's like you're seeing like a fly 200 miles away on the tree. You being eaten by a spider. So as I'm pulling back in and I'm seeing the rest of the world and I'm pulling back in closer and closer to myself, and I'm noticing that it's all one being. And as I'm coming closer and closer to myself, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is all one being. And then I'm starting to realize that it's possible that the head is actually right in front of me. And as I'm pulling back, my consciousness is trying to get me aware that, hey, you need to prepare yourself for what's about to happen. This is a big point here that you may, you need to be on point. And as I'm pulling back, and then I come right to the house, because I was like, oh, the top of the house. I see the house in the gazebo. I see its whole face right there staring at me. Now, I'm going to show you how this works. This is what omniscience is. And at that moment, I was about to lose it. Like, it was just too much, because I had already gone from the farthest of where this being was all the way to where I was to discover that I was actually even standing on this whole being. And then something said, look, you either can go nuts right now or you can laugh. Choose. So I started cracking up. And I was laughing into tears. And I was able to bring the frequency in and calm my fears. And what happened was it said this. All of these things, they're made from me. Think about it. It should be common sense for you. Even if it's plastic, if it's steel, if it's metal, if it's wood, it's all made from me. So, because they stopped wanting to see me, this is the mother, to be with them, I disguised myself as other things. I'm even your keyboard so you can touch me. I'm your mic so you can talk through me. All these metals, all of these woods, all of this stone is me. That's how close I am to my children. But because they are afraid of me, I hide myself, but I'm still with them. Now, when you just think about this and dial into something like this, it's always great to hear about somebody's journey. I know for folks, they was on one. Like, they walking across Bardo Plains where all the trees are slumped down and everything is moaning its name and stuff like that. Those are, I guess, amazing journeys. But I can't seem to connect that at all with what I'm dealing with in this particular space. So anytime I go into journeys, I always say, bring me what is applicable for my people in this space. And that also means that it has to be able to click to everyone, like real facts, that is how it really is. That all this stuff that we've created, we've only bent up, heated up, burnt up, reshaped the same thing coming from the same source. So that source lives through all of this. That's why the experience that you're actually having is not based on how we've sculpted all of these different things around us that are all part of the same thing. It's based on what we think the meaning is and what the meaning is that we gave it. And whether we realize whether we were touching the mother or we thought that we were touching something alien, whether we moved her away from us and C-sected ourselves from our own consciousness and what truly is ours, whether we made everything the enemy that's around us or we chose to harness its power and create more ways for us to even deflect its potency, to allow its poison to actually become our cure. That's the alchemist. That's the realm that we're from. That's the realm where our parents are. And this is the gauntlet in front of us, where they say the Argonauts and their mission, the daughters of Hera and the Amazonians and their plight. This is that part of existence to make a greater being. As they say, pressed down and running over. That means that you're in the crucible. This is a hermetic vacuum. There's pressure on you. As they say, pressure busts pipes. There's pressure on you right now. You're under pressure. Literally. If you don't think there's pressure, go dive down into the ocean and try to keep going. And you're going to meet pressure. Go get up into a plane and keep going higher. Go up to 80,000. Go to 90. Be like Bumgardner. Go jump off the top of it and see the pressure. But then also remember that you're in suits. They showed today on Reddit Tutankhamun's tomb, right? And you've seen the one with the gold and all this, right? But they showed the original thing that it came out of. It was like Russian dolls, 7 layers or 9 layers deep. I got to spend time to count the layers, 7 or 9. That once you remove one casing, then it was another casing, then another casing, then another casing, then a coffin, then another coffin, then another coffin, then another coffin, then finally the body. This is symbolic. It's not saying everybody got to be buried this way. This would be ridiculous. This is symbolic. It's saying that your ancestor is underneath these different layers in the deep, but still connected through fibrous membranes in a network of neurons and trees like roots that you are also plugged into by lot, meaning that it is your allotment. This is your inheritance, the tree. Some people are always looking for that inheritance of money. Money is green because it is symbolic to a tree. So you already inherited all of the wealth. Now you do have to go in and stake your claim, though, because some beings do steal wealth. They're also a part of the breaking down and building up networks. So that's what we have here today. When we go on our meditation, it is Monday. It's one day before the full moon, but we're still in the full magnitude. We think about within ourselves that breaking down process. And then we break down that wall between life and death. This lack of communication. If you have an opportunity, I told you the freeway. Maybe some of y'all got Netflix. Maybe y'all got friends. I heard somebody say this on Netflix. Check it out. From a metaphysical mind, and I think they did exceptional on the graphics. Being a graphics guy myself and CGI, it's very difficult to do something like that to really convey what is being talked about. When you flip this upside down, if you were seeing inside of the network and you were seeing all the electrodes and the lights, this is what folks see when they on LSD. If you've seen all the forms of life and creation, all working, all in, and not even working, funning, we call it. Remember, it's fungi. Hey, I'll leave it at that. They're not working. It's fun over there. That's the only reason why a tree or a plant or a seed or a mushroom or anything can produce something that makes you happy is if it's having fun itself. Wouldn't that make sense? Like just with you, if you have a bad attitude and you don't never have fun, when you're around us, you're not going to make us feel great. You're going to make us have a bad attitude and not have fun. You had to be like that. So if someone comes around us and they all They're just all this energy and everything. Everybody starts getting it because we're all getting the sporage off of them. And it's contagious. It gets on all of us. So too, if someone's all depressed and emoed out, it gets on all of us. So we're talking about a kingdom that is in full support. They don't feel like that this is too heavy for them. It's all over. They can't do it. They need money. All of these kind of things that are really there for you and in your service. And on top of that, even if you got a financial barrier there and you can't pick up the Rishis and whatever, I'm sure if you just go walk out there where there's nothing built by man long enough, you'll find your supplement right there. I didn't see anyone that really was into themselves, really wanted to get into themselves. I didn't see anyone that didn't get that assistance. The only beings that I saw that didn't get assistance was the ones that were still playing. They thought that they were going to play with it. How are you playing with yourself? You're seeing yourself from the inside. So if you're a joke about it, this is why it's not great to have external gods, because you just become a joke to yourself inside of yourself. So those that weren't serious, their guide never showed up. They didn't show up for themselves. The moment they get serious, the moment they actually light up. And then they go through that same process. Nobody can take another person. I'm not carrying you on my back to the top of Mount Meru. There's no need. If you want to go up there, you got to climb yourself. Our job is to leave the breadcrumb, if you may, our own lines, our own silver and gold lines coming off the back of us as a passageway to show you this is the direction. And the only thing that we have to do at times is, like we talked about before, our leaders and our mentors, aligning ourselves with leaders and mentors that we say that's the direction that I want to go. I may even surpass this person. I may even take a left where they took a right. But as far as where they are right now, they're lighting the way. And that has to do with, for you, it should have to do with balance right now, especially. All the theatrics, the fear, the doom and gloom, the fear porn, as I call it, is you got to detox. It's time to take a break. It's time to decrypt all of that and make that serve us. Remembering that every single thing, every single being is all made from the same source, waiting for you to establish a relationship with it. Mother loves to see when the child comes in. So there we are, Wholeness and Balance Vibrations Tribe. Let's go ahead and go into our meditation. Again, we're dialing in to dissolve the wall between life and death. It's just ridiculous at this stage to realize that there's a lit up kingdom already on fleek. Great times, internal lights, bunch of beings having fun. Like you ain't even had no fun yet. When you see how much they get into this. All brothers, all sisters, everybody in place. This is your meditation. So let's go ahead and go into it. I'm going to go ahead and get our golden intonation going on. Again, for those that are out there that may be experiencing a slightly difficult internet connection, zoomed and allowed 317 in here. So, we're just going to keep going with that. And then also we have this recording. I also wanted to say thank you for all those that came in today holding space. It's extremely important. Like these messages come in, if you want to understand how it works, is because remember, when there's a lot of us, you don't know who you're dealing with in here. It may not be any of us. It may just be one person up in here and they just came in from Zarvan. And then the Zarvan being was like, look, that's my child, so he needs to get this message. Oh, look. There's a telephone right there. Let me call in this guy and see if he wants it. I'll be like, hello. He's like, what do you got? You see this? It matches right up with the blueprint. Indeed. Let's go with that. So what I'm saying is that you have no clue who you're in the room with. This is why they were always saying, now you need to be careful who you talk to, because sometimes you offend angels. What does that mean? That means that every single being actually has other beings behind them, and like ad infinitum. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, I just look over their head. Like, yo, what's good with you? The person be like, I'm right here. I'm like, no, that's not. You're still on the program. I'm talking to the thing that's kind of running the show right now. What's good? Are you reporting? Are you checking in? What should we be doing with this one right here? Like, you have to see the invisible, but more importantly, you got to do that by feeling it. So tap into this mycelium. Know when your feet touch that ground that they're not just there on some dirt. They're there on life. And also when you see fertile ground, remember, that's why standing by trees is so important, because whatever is in the ground, in the soil, has allowed the tree to get this big and to grow this high. Also, I was with my brother Soul, and my brother Soul was also saying, because he works in the farm, he was saying, well, what happens is if you don't
cut it, like
right, we'll wait for somebody to hit that mic. So you're saying what happens is you don't plant anything on that soil will eventually die. So you can have this super fertile soil, but if you don't put a seed in it and get plants growing in it and their roots in there, which also break down, when they get transitioned, the soil dies. So this is very important to also see how all of these things work together. We talked about this before, but it's very relative to what we're dealing with right now. Humanity did not start on the first day and the second day and the third day. That's when the one tries to come before the zero. It's hilarious. It's just foolishness. You're telling me that on one day we created all the birds, on the next day we created all the trees. This makes no sense, because in any moment where one of those things are not there, all of them are going to die in that moment. You cannot wait till tomorrow to add another group of beings. Look at the ancient Hindu text, the ancient Lemurian text. They talk about earth and consciousness and the universe and all this unfolding like a lotus. All at one time. It just came online like a dream, like it was already there. It already had a past and it had a future already. It just came out of nowhere. I know that sounds crazy, right? That earth and all of existence, as far as when the first pillars were set and everything was set up into perfection and the garden started and the whole thing went online, it all happened just like that. A lot of people don't believe that. They know, well, no, on the first day, first light came in and then all this. No, man, that's when you're slow. You believe that when you're slow. When you jump in the dream, it already started. It's already going on. You already got a name. You already got a character. You already got a life. You're already in action. You got to, because it was happening somewhere else first. It was going on in some way, shape, or form, even if it was just geometries bumping up against each other. When they cast shadows, all that was going on. So I'm just saying that existence doesn't start like then first the sun, then now the waters, then now the trees. No, that it cannot work. The moment you don't have one, you don't have the other. This should let us know a lot about ourselves too, and our existence here with each other and with all the other things that are here, and why everything's explicitly linked. So when we carry that vibration, we carry that space, or hold that space, and we work with this frequency, and we work with the spectrum of who we truly are, this is what we radiate anyway. This comes off of our pheromones, as we talked about. This comes off of all of our hormones. So again, all the funkin' components, moaning and mooing, all of the rivers and the flowing of life in the white milks. This is creation. This is life. This is what we're about. But to know life, ye must know death. That's what we were talking about with every single sign. Whatever it does really good at, it also has that other side of it where it knows how to manage that too. That's the same way that we have to be. Where we really excel at, we have to be able to master the opposite of what that would be. And this is the key into that. It's letting us see how we master death specifically. And we mastered that with joy. That's why in all of the ancient cultures, when somebody's leaving, it's a celebration, not a funeral. I would advise once again that even when we're saying good morning, in our mind, now that was set there because actually when you're coming into the day, you're coming into the more. The more means like you're mourning somebody, like something just died basically. And that was, let's say, the night. But people don't get it like that. They think that mourning means sadness. So it's best to just say good day. Because if you're celebrating the new time that's supposed to be coming in, but you're doing that by mourning, then you're mourning through celebration. So this would be, you're celebrating through mourning, and which is totally oxymoronic. And then, of course, when somebody dies, now everybody wears black, but the color of death is actually white and silver. And then from there, You see how if you don't know your own story, somebody will try to rewrite the story for you, and they'll write you out of the story. They'll write your benefits out of the will. So this is how, again, you reclaim your inheritance by bringing yourself back to life. You're no longer dead. This is why we're talking about going above even the Black's Law and the straw man and all that, and actually going into the higher kingdom and let the higher edicts and the higher decrees handle all those, give them the cease and desist. I'm going to the center of the ring. I don't got time to be processing no paperwork. I don't got time to be talking to nobody, no honorary folks that don't even know who I am and what kind of being I really am. I'll let the angels and all the rest of the messengers carry the messages to them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get into alignment with myself, and I'm going to come right into the center. I'm going to walk right up to the front doorstep of myself. I'm going to fling the doors open. I'm going to slam whoever is on the throne in place of me down to the Cossacks. And then I'm going to put everything else in its place. And then I'm going to let my land know, this is my body, that now the good Kahin, which is the king or the queen, the one who has a balance within themselves, rebus, hermaphroditic, Aphroditic, whatever you want to call it, is back on the throne. And now ready to actually let the top unite with the bottom, the upper unite with the lower kingdom, the snake unite with the bird, to remove these concepts of angels and demons and friction, which is time. So that way I can step into the realm of my ancestors, which is immortality, because they have the key to time. It doesn't mean that you cannot come back in here. It doesn't mean that you're leaving everybody. If it was the truth, it's always there. It just gives you passage. So that way you learn how to let it go. I only got to this knowledge and this wisdom at this stage because I was willing to let my other life go. That's literally what happened. I saw it did let me see I was going to lose it again. I was in this up and down, up and down. I'll get a lot of money, and then something would happen. I would come down. I would get a lot of money, something happened, come down because of the actions and the things that I was carrying on and things I was doing. And then I got caught at the peak. I was on top. I had the condos, the exotic cars, the lifestyle, the actors and stars, all of those different people, all in the nucleus. And then someone said, hey, man, you about to fall again. And you just can't see the pattern. But we're not going to let you do this time. You got to get rid of this weight. Reverse the equation. You're so logical. You can figure out that if you, instead of losing everything, just gave it away, you would reverse the equation, right? Don't you believe in this? And then I had to go through 2 weeks of going from belief to knowing, continuously shocking me personally, myself with higher self. Chakra centers open, chakra shocking, getting shocked continuously about all this stuff that I didn't know as I'm walking through Atlanta, Georgia. All these underground connections and all of these different signs and symbols and things at night and Masonic lodges and all this stuff that I knew not. As my eyes were open, I was showed the other worlds and how, and the designers and those who have put different things in place, snares to even trap humanity. And then when I rose forth from that, all I could do is just get out of it. I just want to be by myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to look in anybody's eyes. When I look in your eyes, I can see every single thing that you cherish the most, because that is at the front of your frontal lobe. People keep what they cherish the most on the front of their mind when it's supposed to be in the holiest of holies, locked away. So, and then it wasn't even like you were reading minds. You were saying that everybody was thinking the same thing. What is the power of reading minds when everybody is thinking the same thing? You just don't want to tap in. So I had to come away from all of that. It was just me and an iguana for months. That's how shocking my experience was. I went from top Super Bowl night, Prince, Patti LaBelle, supercars and all that stuff, to gecko, cold shower, and view into the ocean in a small little hut that was like $200 a month, and I was content. I was like calculating. I was like, based on my equation, because I was at the logical side, I said, man, based on my equation, I can live out here for another 5 years and never have to return to the matrix. Great. I'm going to actually figure out a way to get off the entire planetary system, because basically what I just saw lets me know that not only that is possible, but even more. And that was the beginning of this 10 years ago. To realize also in that process that where are you going? Where are you going? Why are you always escaping from things all the time? Be here now. Be here for these beings and these people. Did you do your best at giving the knowledge away that was given to you? Look at where it took you. You don't think it could do that for somebody else? Let's see. If you can't even answer that question until you actually do it, are you really about that life? Are you ready to toil into the garden? Even when it's reaping thorns and thistles, even when people are commenting and acting crazy about you, acting crazy on you, saying you did things that you had nothing to do with, do you want to inherit the process of taking death into life? Is what the question is. And then, of course, when we accept that within ourselves, that's when we actually get somewhere and we move beyond what seems to be stumping quite a few beings. How to get beyond. So we're going into the meditation. I know that was a bit long-winded for today. But I'm also sure that maybe it will become useful for you in actually adapting to your origins and where you're actually from, and getting a little bit more definition that when we say you need to ground, what you're actually grounding into, and then how that communication network exists where your ancestors are actually always communicating with you, and exactly how that works, because especially since the Western mind is so logical, bending it back into the center and actually realizing how all this stuff connects is the keys that we're delivering during this session. So here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and line up this camera off also. It looks like every camera here is on. So thank you so much. Also, thanks so much to the moderators. Like, y'all may not have any idea of what it takes and what actually goes on behind the scenes. Every now and then somebody say in the chat room, y'all remove me. Well, did you read the policy? Did you, we already told you what needed to happen in here for us to stay on point. So I just wanted to say thank you to the moderators, because oftentimes when they're doing that, they don't have the opportunity to actually listen to the message, and they either have to get it on the flip side or just take it in truth. So thanks for that. Also, again, to all those that are just coming in today, it's great to see you. And also, we ask that if you do have some friends and that they need they need another voice in all of this, they need a dog in a whole different race, it is time to get them onto this process of connecting in with themselves and for them to realize just how powerful they are. You can listen back into the meditations. I believe it's around the 4th day or 5th day that we start really going into the planetary systems and just explaining their relationship. We've been able to smooth through each day. There's no promises. Maybe one day we'll come in here and there's total silence because nothing says anything. But as it is right now, we're getting this transmission of connection that's rolling into a story that is taking place inside of us, and then also able to be witnessed externally, which is giving us a blueprint. And with a blueprint, you actually have the diagram to yourself. It is the manual. That's why manual begins with man. It actually is a reference to the manual is a reference to the physical God. Man means flesh. It doesn't mean female. It doesn't mean male. First of all, male doesn't mean male, as ma doesn't mean man. But it's all a conundrum. Man or manna is flesh, right? So being able to have a manual. The L is the electron of the light. And so to have a manual of exactly how this functions is the keys right now that we're delivering with this blueprint. But, because there's always a disclaimer, the map is not the terrain itself. So this means that you just listening to it does have some power and effect, but it has the greatest power and the greatest effect when you apply it and actually utilize it. So that's what we got here. Nobody can flip the switch for you. There's no Eve angel. There's no, I die for you and you live. That doesn't work out. This is about you having the power, you having the ability to be the Lord and the master of yourself. And in speaking that word, even that the Lord, as I said, was actually more of a feminine term, but the Lord is a reference to the lowest step on the ladder, okay? So in occultism, the lowest step on the ladder is the moon. It is the ladder of lights is basically how close the lights are to you. The lowest one, or the Lord, is the moon. So this just means that when you solve in yourself the riddle of death and everything surrounded by life and death, which we talked about today, you now gain that level. And you're able to basically transcend that first step. Because you can't be thinking about death and fear and all that kind of stuff as you keep increasing into the higher levels. You have to solve it. So this is the solution. So here we go. The meditation again is to dissolve the line between life and death, to demystify it, to decrypt it. Here we go. We're going to take this moment to just take some deep breaths. That's what we're doing here. We're getting into a relaxed meditative pose or position. I know we've gotten a lot into, thinking about certain things even right now. We've discussed knowledge of the highest nature, but what it was is to lead us back into ourselves, to give us the assurance that what we're doing and what's happening in our lives, that there's already a plan, there's already a preparation, there's already a level that you're going to expand into. And so now you just need to dissolve the blockages and the lack of awareness about how this truly works. So that's what we're doing in this meditation. It's 15 minutes, just taking deep breaths. That's all that's required. Just take deep breaths, going in and out, focusing on dissolving the distortions, dissolving the misconceptions. As we take the moment and the time to bring ourselves back into our consciousness here in this space, as we've dissolved the walls between life and death and the misconceptions of their purpose, as we've empowered ourselves with all things, we take this time and we take this moment to just dial in sincerely to the space of what is being experienced in our planetary system at this moment. We see so much footage and so many reports of many animals coming into the space. They even have footage here of some deer headed to the beach, dolphins into the Venice canals, nature restoring in itself so rapidly while it's been given this moment to take a breath from its engagement with the human beings on the physical. And while I don't doubt that we will return to being in the company of nature and being outside, I don't believe personally that it will return back to the way that things were. I believe that these kingdoms are powering themselves up in order to be able to support us into our next stage of awareness. And I also believe for those that are holding up the spectrum and the balance within themselves, that they're moving into more expanded levels of connection with this space and each other. We're opening up new forms of etheric communication. And we're also taking the responsibility within ourselves to truly bring in the activation and bring ourselves online and to know what that actually really means. And not just use the words, but also be familiar, to be actually in a relationship with self, to know as best as we can the story of the organs and the powers, as we talked about yesterday, the mains or the forces that are within us, and how they are here to assist us. You have a little bit of joy to also jump into today. If you've seen it once, see it again. It helps us all keep dialing into the space. That's the fantastic fungi, just to see that network that is already running underneath our feet of full consciousness, and our abilities here to be supported by that network on a continuous level. And then also, we'll be here tomorrow at 7 a.m. again, that's Costa Rica time, for another build with this meditation as we keep going. But this is very sacred, very important time right now. I can't say it enough. I won't even get into it right now. It's a very important time. It's not like your normal month. This is a big deal happening here in April, as the choosing of the Easter, or what you call Easter, is coming across, and you're choosing the energies. This is the full moon of the month. So don't let someone, juice you. Don't become moon food today. Even if you got to avoid some folks, do not let them get it. The next 3 days is really important. Just, if you see the conflict coming, don't even waste your time. At one point, win the battle for real. Just dip out of there. That way you can keep dialing the energy properly. You have from now to the 22nd. That's also the new moon. That dials in the energy perfectly for what you're looking to experience in the next course or orbit that we're going to be going through here in this planetary system. Lots of massive things happening, lots of benefits. They scream the end of the world. I scream no such thing as an end. As I said, that since you see these kingdoms and you see how we're all intertwined, them having greater strength, because they're being, again, given this break. There's no pollution. Imagine if you didn't get a chance to go outside. Animals has never been able to go outside. Deers never get a chance to really be out there. They got to hide. They got to creep every single place they go. Like right now, they're out there, throwing snowballs and all sorts of stuff. It's really happening for them. And just remember, because this is all collective energy, it means a form of our constant, a form and constellation within our system is actually recovering rapidly. And for those of us that are metaphysically in tune, we know that we'll get that support and we'll keep receiving that continuous support. What we talked about today was how to make sure you're dialed into that properly. This is dialing in. It's like a telephone number. If you're kind of on a whole nother line, talking to something totally different, then you're not going to get the message. So you don't get the trigger. You don't know exactly what to do. This is giving you exactly what you need and what you need to do for yourself. So today we're going to try this again. We're going to count to 3. And we're going to say wholeness at the same time. We're going to try this. But I found out it just doesn't work with just say wholeness. It has to be a ceremonious wholeness. And that's just the reverberating and sending it across the world. So 1, 2. I said count to 3. How we going to get to the higher level? Y'all can't follow no instructions. We're on the count of 3 is 1, 2, 3. Wholeness. And there it is, family. And there are those waves vibrating all over through the cosmic space when we recognize ourselves, and until we see each other again, I'll find you in your heart.